There are some very interesting and fascinating new developments in the Julian Assange situation, including a supposed plot to assassinate the Wikileaks founder that recently hit the press. I think there's much more to the story than being reported and warrants a closer examination. So, as a quick recap, as many of you all know, Assange has been confined in the Belmarsh maximum security prison in London since April of 2019. He faces 18 charges, 17 of which are espionage charges related to his involvement with Chelsea Manning, and is facing up to 175 years in prison. Specifically, the U.S. government is seeking to try Assange for violating the Espionage Act of 1917, which has received criticism from many, even including editors for mainstream media outlets such as the New York Times and the Washington Post, who consider this an attack on the First Amendment. Assange is currently fighting extradition to the U.S. to face these charges, and in January of 2021, the judge ruled in his favor, citing that Assange is in real risk of suicide and such an act would be oppressive. On October 27th of this year, Assange faced the High Court again regarding the U.S.'s urgency for his extradition, who seek to overturn the judge's January ruling to keep him in London. Now, some of the more interesting developments that have unfolded over the last few months involve a supposed CIA plot to assassinate Assange prior to his imprisonment when he was holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy. Now, this in and of itself may not be all that shocking, as many probably recall the infamous request by Hillary Clinton to drone strike Assange back in 2010 as a retaliatory response to his leaks. This, of course, was 4 years after the inception of Wikileaks and subsequent intel drops by the organization that revealed a very dark side of the U.S. government and its machinations, including horrific and disturbing war crimes that the public had not yet been privy to. So it's not so far-fetched to imagine that a number of people within the U.S. government would have been infuriated with the info leaked by Assange's outlet and subsequently sought to take him down, especially considering the effect these leaks ultimately had on the 2016 election, resulting in Hillary Clinton's defeat. There's much more to look into with these latest revelations in the Assange saga, and it's important to not take everything at face value, especially after what we learned with Russiagate. First and foremost, these new developments come from none other than Michael Isikoff, who, in case you forgot, played a key role in disseminating the widely accepted narrative that the Trump administration was secretly working with the Russians in order to undermine Hillary Clinton's campaign. Back in 2016, Hillary hired Perkins Coie, a law firm, to help with her campaign endeavors, who in turn hired Fusion GPS to conduct opposition research on her opponent Donald Trump. Fusion GPS then contracted ex-British intelligence officer Christopher Steele to collect dirt on Trump from quote-unquote inside sources that Hillary's campaign could then use against him. It's important to note that one of the main sources Steele used to gather intel, Igor Dashenko, was recently arrested for lying to investigators. So going back 2 months before the 2016 election, Steele met with Isikoff to provide him and other mainstream media outlets with his bombshell intel that linked Trump to the Russians. Isikoff subsequently wrote an article that detailed this information from Steele's dossier that the FBI would then use to issue a FISA warrant to spy on Trump advisor Carter Page. It was not until April of 2019 when we learned from the Mueller report that the investigation was unable to establish Page coordinated with the Russians in its final conclusions. Fast forward to 2021, and here we are with a new bombshell report from Isikoff that the CIA had a secret plot to take out Assange during Trump's time in office. It's quite a wild and exciting article detailing the nefarious but subverted plans of former CIA Director Mike Pompeo and his agency to try to abduct Julian Assange and/or assassinate him. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't doubt this possibility in the least, as I outlined previously the motives of many within the government, especially the CIA, to want to take out Assange. What I first found interesting in Isikoff's article was laying all the blame on Pompeo's CIA under the Trump administration, as if the CIA had this stellar reputation up until Pompeo and Trump came along. I would argue that since the CIA's inception, it has operated as one of the most dangerous factions of the U.S. government, who wields way too much power and has caused way too much damage to this country and many countries throughout the world for decades. It quite honestly should be eradicated altogether. JFK wanted to smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and look how that worked out for him. But Isikoff only highlights the secret, dark plot coming from Pompeo's CIA and fails to acknowledge the CIA's long and inveterate track record of shadiness, deceit, and committing atrocities, most often covertly, for the sake of some type of political gain or power grab. In fact, while he does lay out why the intelligence community over the past decade would have honed in on Assange and WikiLeaks and felt they had credence to increase spying on them and those affiliated, he noted that the CIA, up until the Trump administration, harbored more sensitivity on how they would collect surveillance and would have been more concerned about First Amendment issues, as if that was all thrown out the window when Trump and Pompeo showed up. Isikoff even ends his article with a quote from a former counterintelligence official who he used throughout the article to make his points, scolding Pompeo's CIA's handling of the Assange situation by stating that we should never act out of a desire for revenge. This is quite laughable coming from a former CIA official because, the CIA has always been a bastion of integrity prior to Pompeo. Now, in Isikoff's article, he contends that Pompeo's fervor to kill Julian Assange stems from the Vault 7 leaks, which were a release of troves of documents back in 2017 revealing the activities and capabilities of the CIA to perform electronic surveillance and cyber warfare. Specifically, Isikoff wrote that Pompeo was seeking revenge after this release and that the CIA was seeing blood. This is quite a different turn that Isikoff has taken, as he has spent years trying to extinguish conspiracy theories surrounding Russiagate, such as that a number of government agencies like the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ were working together in some fashion to help Hillary by covering up her crimes, and also scheming to take out Trump by manufacturing false info they could use for an indictment that would be grounds for an impeachment. Isikoff was also incredibly irritated with the Seth Rich conspiracy theories that the former DNC staffer was the one who stole thousands of damning emails from the DNC servers, not a remote hack by a group of Russians, who then passed info along to WikiLeaks and was subsequently murdered over it. Interestingly, Assange himself has heavily implied that Rich was a source for WikiLeaks and even offered a reward for information on his death.
Donald Trump has had a disastrous few weeks. If you look at the polls, he needs a miracle. In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
But it's quite something to suggest a murder. That's basically what you're doing.
Well, that others have suggested that. We are investigating to understand what happened in that situation with Seth Rich. I think it is a concerning situation. There's not a conclusion yet. We wouldn't be willing to state a conclusion, but we are concerned about it. And more importantly, a variety of WikiLeaks sources are concerned when that kind of thing happens.
Additionally, WikiLeaks publicly stated that their source for the stolen emails was not the Russian government nor a state party. So, do I think that Isikoff is that obtuse to hold the position that the CIA is only capable of having sinister motives and ambitions when Pompeo stepped in? No, I think Isikoff knows exactly what he's doing. He's a seasoned journalist and, as some speculate, a likely operative for the DNC machine who is deliberately framing the story this way which I believe for a deeper purpose. Considering the role that Issakov's most notable article played, attempting to connect Trump to Russia based on info passed to him by a former spy/Hillary operative, one has to wonder if there is an ulterior motive with this latest bombshell. It's also important to note the timing of this article being published, which was just 1 month prior to Assange's October hearing, in which we are still awaiting the fate of his possible extradition. Was this article meant to affect the outcome of Assange's trial? Now, just last week, we received yet another bombshell report from Isakov, this time revealing that the U.S. is now stonewalling a probe into the Spanish security firm that allegedly spied on Assange for the CIA under Pompeo. Isakov did touch on the security firm aspect in the first article, but this one lays out a more detailed account of the current drama unfolding between the Spanish courts and ours, as well as this Spanish security firm and the Ecuadorian embassy who housed Assange for years. This new report perhaps even gives us a clearer picture of a possible underlying agenda behind Isakov's reporting. In this article, we learned that a Spanish judge is seeking info from the United States Justice Department, in particular the IP addresses of those who purportedly had access to files documenting Assange's activities while in the embassy. It is alleged that the Spanish security firm UC Global, hired by Ecuador to protect its London embassy, was also concurrently spying on Assange during his stay. Assange's lawyers believe that this company installed hidden cameras and microphones so they could covertly record and eavesdrop on Assange's private affairs and communications. This story first unfolded when 3 former employees of UC Global, whose identities are kept anonymous, went to the police to report that the company's owner, David Morales, had directed them to secretly spy on Assange. In addition to installing microphones and swiping data off of phones of Assange's visitors, they also alleged they were asked to steal a baby's diaper so they could run a DNA test in order to prove Assange's paternity. Furthermore, they claim that Morales discussed plans with them to facilitate a kidnapping of Assange or even possibly poisoning him. But that's not all. These 3 employees also assert that Morales informed them that the information they were collecting on Assange was actually being circumvented to the United States, specifically to the CIA. According to one of these anonymous employees, Morales told them, "We have moved to the dark side," in reference to now working with the CIA. Now, Morales has adamantly denied these allegations by his former employees, saying these were all lies and like something out of a spy film script. He insists that the information gathered was done by the embassy itself, not by his company, and that it was the Ecuadorian government who would have passed that along to the US, if true, and not by his company. The embassy, of course, argues against this assertion and throws the blame back at him, denying any awareness of the spying. Well, they both can't be right. What's even more intriguing is another twist to this whole saga, and perhaps a possible indicator of an underlying agenda, is that the final claim by these employees is that this UC Global company had actually funneled spy intel collected by the firm through the Las Vegas Sands company to the CIA. Now, Las Vegas Sands' former owner, billionaire Sheldon Adelson, was another one of Morales' clients at the same time of the embassy. It's important to note that Adelson was Trump's biggest donor, contributing $75 million to his campaign. Adelson passed away in the beginning of this year on January 11th, or 1/11. Those who are into numerology will certainly make something out of that. So he won't be able to testify on the matters either way. Now it seems the pieces are starting to fall into place here. If they're able to prove that the UC Global company, not the embassy, did in fact spy on Assange, they can then link Trump to the illegal surveillance activities of the security firm through his biggest donor's company and to the CIA. Isakov already set the stage with his first article highlighting the disturbing claim that Pompeo wanted to assassinate Assange, which had me wondering what he was up to. Now, I want to make it very clear, I'm not denying any of the information presented in either of Isakov's articles. In fact, I believe a lot of it likely true, although we don't know at this point in time whether the UC Global company or the Ecuadorian embassy was responsible for the secret spying. What I do know is that something doesn't sit right with this entire picture, and given what we know about Isakov's previous role in the political circus that was Russiagate, has me wondering what possible agenda lies beneath the whole story. Also, I was never a fan of Pompeo, and one of my criticisms of Trump was him keeping Pompeo around for so long, including making him Secretary of State. I do not trust the CIA, nor will I ever, and believe it to be rotten to its core. It appears they're making Pompeo the fall guy for the CIA to divert attention away from the CIA's actions prior to him taking over, and also shifting all the blame to Trump regarding the U.S.'s handling of the Assange situation overall. Another interesting aspect in shifting the focus to Pompeo being enraged by the WikiLeaks drops that revealed cyber warfare tactics used by the CIA is what the Vault 7 leaks actually revealed about the CIA before Pompeo took over that relates directly to Russiagate and the DNC hacks. When Brennan ran the CIA back in 2015, he reorganized the agency and developed a new directorate focused on digital innovation, and its main mission being to manipulate digital footprints. In one program, Digital Dust, a tool known as Marble was created that essentially could embed foreign language text into the malware source code to fool security analysts and falsely attribute attacks to the wrong nation. Interestingly, when computer forensics analysts examined the metadata in the documents sent out by Guccifer 2.0 in 2016, well, wouldn't you know, they found Russian footprints sloppily left all over them. In case you forgot, Guccifer 2.0 was a supposed persona created by the Russian intelligence services that the U.S. intelligence communities concluded was a cover for the real Russian interference that they claimed took place. So it is argued that perhaps the real Guccifer 2.0 persona was actually created by the CIA to make it appear that the Russians were the ones who hacked the servers and, oops, they accidentally left all these footprints all over it. So there you go. It's the Russians. Pompeo was not the only CIA director angered with WikiLeaks. Brennan very much as well, and we can see why. But Isikoff deliberately focuses on Pompeo's outrage with the organization when, realistically, Brennan would have the biggest axe to grind. What's funny though, he does in the article noting that it's not uncommon for cyber actors, whether they be intelligence services or hackers, to mask their IP addresses, and false positives could result. Ultimately, what I see is a deeper situation going on surrounding Assange. In one aspect, Assange holds the key to who really gave WikiLeaks the stolen emails. If not Russians, such unmasking could bring the entire house of cards down for those who orchestrated the Russiagate false narrative. Those in the FBI, CIA, DOJ, other intelligence agencies, and many others would be caught red-handed. But even going further than that, I believe it's possible Assange has much more damning info on those on both sides of the aisle, and a current battle is taking place to control the Assange narrative and to control Assange himself. For the same reasons that Ghislaine has survived jail almost 100% longer than Epstein, I think the same goes for Assange. What info do they have, and where is it? What fail-safes or deadman switches do either have in place in the event they become Epsteined themselves? Is it possible the latest bombshell that Pompeo secretly sought to assassinate Assange is a cover story for something deeper? If Assange does in fact have a deadman switch or an insurance policy, as others call it, then no intelligence agency or any government agency would seek to just take him out. He would be more valuable alive than dead. Relatedly, one of the interesting details in Isikoff's first report was how the hunt for getting Assange was so intense that a potential Assange escape set off a wild scramble among rival spy services in London, American, British, and Russian agencies. What value would be in capturing Assange among these competing intel agencies other than the obvious? Perhaps the possibility of providing them coveted leverage with the intel he has, or has hidden.